Let's start. If you're still coming in, please check in. As I said, I'm Susu Duga. I am programming chair and co-chair of PIN. PIN is an organization that was founded 45 years ago by parents, much like yourselves, who were interested in helping their kids make good choices. Anybody concerned about the choices their kids make or might make in the future? My kids are in their 20s, and I'm still concerned about the choices they make. So anyway, PIN has progressed through the years, Parent Information Network, and what we do is we provide top-notch speakers like you will hear today for free, not $25, $35, $150, for free, for anybody in the district and anybody you want to invite. If you happen to belong to a school, all of your schools in Cherry Creek School District are automatically members of PIN. We have some private schools who are members of PIN. If you are not sure if your school is a member and it's a private school, if you have a kid at a different school, come and speak to one of us and we can get you hooked up. Make sure you bring home at least one of these green bookmarks that has the details of where we are, our website, so you can listen to the recordings of these, or if you have a friend who couldn't make it today, they can listen to the recordings. And then it has the lineup for this year. On the website, you will hear all kinds of amazing speakers from past years that would still be pertinent to you today. So, you know, while you're on your walk or you're in the car waiting for soccer practice to end, gymnastics, debate, whatever, you can be listening to some of these podcasts. This year, we wanted to have something new for you, just a little gift. These notepads are put together and sponsored by One Chance to Grow Up, which helps educate parents, teachers, legislators, legislative people, how marijuana and THC is affecting our kids and how to regulate that. So they have collaborated with PIN, and we have these little notepads for you to take all your notes in. So put them somewhere where you can look at them again and bring them back on that first Tuesday of the month. All right, everybody stand up. Get your blood moving. Okay. How many of you, this is a raise your hand thing, how many of you have kids who are younger than 5? All right. Thank you for being here. This will help those little years be a little more exciting. Elementary school. Woo! A lot of them. I call these the honeymoon years. Your kids mostly still like you. They like to be around you. They think you have some pretty cool ideas most of the time. How about the unknown of middle school? Oh, yeah. It's your kids enter one way and they come out another way. It's quite the journey. And then high school. Fabulous. So look at all these people who survived middle school. That's great. So high school, your kids really, they enter high school one way and their brain starts maturing and they exit another way. And with Love and Logic, you will see that your kids have a much better chance of exiting high school with a brain that's developing faster and more responsibly. Who's got kids who have finished high school and who are working in the world? Awesome, it happens. Who have kids who are in college? All right. Woohoo! Any military people? Yeah. Hooray. Okay. And anybody grandparenting? Thank you, thank you. You've got, even if you just are if you're grandparenting full-time or once a week on a regular basis or the weekends, you have such a huge role to play in your kids and in the parents of those kids. All right, have a seat. I would like to ask the PIN board to hop up here for a minute. So there's nothing magical and special about all of these people who are up here except that they have a passion for parenting and they have a passion for families and for kids and for doing the best that they can. So we are more than happy to welcome any one of you who would like to be involved in PIN. You could come to a PIN board meeting and see what happens behind the velvet curtain. So I will pass this down and you can introduce yourself. Again, I'm Susu Duga.
Julie Dryfault, I'm the hospitality coordinator, and I have a 18-year-old, a 20-year-old, and a 21-year-old, all through the Cherry Creek school system.
Hi, I'm Lena, and I have 2 elementary school kids, and I am the outreach coordinator here.
I'm Shari. I have an 8th grader and a senior in high school, and I am Susu's co-chair.
Hi, I'm Young Mei Yang, and I'm the mom of 2. One is in college, 19-year-old. Actually, today is his birthday. And the younger one is in high school, the senior. And I'm doing the website here and also the email newsletter.
Again. Hi, my name is Carrie Lee. I have 3 daughters, 2 in college and 1 in 10th grader at Kent, and I help with the sponsorships.
And I'm Janice, and I'm the Cherry Creek Schools District Liaison to the PIN board, and I have a 19-year-old and a 22-year-old.
Hi, I'm Jamie Lynn. I am a social media coordinator here, so follow us on Facebook and Instagram. It's PIN at CCSD. I have 3 boys, all in elementary school.
And then we have Olga, who you probably all met as you were walking in, and Olga is the secretary. And then Bobby Turner is not here today. She's bringing her son to Arizona, and she is our treasurer. So thank you for this amazing group of hard workers and great thinkers and big hearts.
Hello? Hello?
So how many of you have heard about Love and Logic? Woo! How many of you came here because you saw the advertisement in your school newsletter? If you didn't see it in your school newsletter, please talk to your office manager because they get a write-up every month with plenty of time to spare to put it in your newsletter. So we're trying to reach as many people as possible. We can fill this room even more than it is today if each person invites somebody. How many of you were invited by somebody? Thank you. And you will thank that person after listening to Jim that you got invited. How many of you got an email directly from PIN? Great. And hopefully Young May helped you sign up for the newsletter that lets you know exactly what's going on each month. And then did I miss something else? Did anybody see a yard sign? It's Facebook. Oh, woohoo! Social media. We're trying to build our social media. So look on Facebook and on Instagram. All right. So get your heart ready and your mind ready to listen to just one of the best speakers and a lovely, intelligent, emotionally and intellectually young man, Jim Fay. He's young because he stays on top of things. He cares deeply. He plays the trumpet amazingly. And he has had so many crazy life experiences. So he knows where you're coming from. If you think, this is such an unusual situation, let me tell you, he's been there, done that, heard it, and can give you some pointers. Again, he's more than happy to stay around afterwards to autograph, personalize any books that you would like to purchase or to answer any of your questions that, something stirred in you and you are wanting a little more information. He's been a principal, a teacher, a psychologist, a speaker all over the world. Love and Logic was born in Colorado off of Foxton Road, off of 285, and has spread throughout the world. It's pretty cool that we get to call Love and Logic, a Colorado native. So please welcome Jim Fay.
Oh, well, I'm so thankful to get to share my passion with you today. Never got tired of that. I never get tired of talking about kids and talking with you about them. And before I leave today, make sure I leave my cell phone number with you, because I'm serious that if I leave you with something that you're not sure about, or if you got something special, you call me up. Because at my age, I spend a lot of time with myself, which is not near as much fun as visiting with you about the kids. So I give that phone number out all the time. Not very many people take advantage. Some people think, well, it must be a gimmick or something, but it's true. So make sure that if you want to stick around, the most important thing I do after we get through here is answer your questions. So if I didn't cover something, or if I confused you, let's talk, because I'm here to hang out with you. Fair enough? Okay. Anybody here secretly wishing that you'd raise kids that are self-sufficient and are problem solvers? Mm-hmm. And go off into the world or off into college and not need a safe space because somebody said something they don't know how to handle? Anybody ever secretly wishing for that? Well, I want to, when we started this years ago, Foster and I, Foster was a psychiatrist, and I were partners, and we used to say, try to raise your kids for the real world ahead. And then way back in those days, we used to say, and figure out how the government runs the country and try to get your kids ready for that. Now we don't say that anymore because we don't want to look silly. But just out of curiosity, how many of you have a pretty good idea what the world is going to look like when your kids are grown? See, we can no longer say, prepare your kids for the real world. So my job is to help you figure out how to prepare kids who can handle a world that they don't even know today, with all kinds of challenges that they don't think they would ever meet. So I've been working with kids now and parents 70 years. Can you believe that? I can't believe that. All that time has gone by. Every 10 years, it seems like we're in a new era where things have changed so much and kids are different. And parents are saying, kids just aren't like they used to be. They're different, And and every 10 years it seems like the social norms were changing. and people didn't feel like they were ready for those changes. And their kids were facing new challenges, and the kids were facing new temptations. And I remember when we started out, the big temptation might be alcohol. Wouldn't it be something if that was the only thing we worried about today? Yeah. And I can't tell you what it's going to be like. But I've watched the parents, because most of our study, we've done a lot of typical study of psychology and so on. And we've studied parents and how they're doing things. But most of it has to do with real life experiences that parents are going through and trying to find ways for them to handle it in more simple ways than feeling like they have to have a 4-year psychology degree. So that's been our job. And we've noticed over the years, there's always new experts every 10 years. And there's new philosophies about how you should be raising your kids. And it's changed every 10 years for all those years that I've been working with kids. But I have watched some people who are very, very successful raising kids, the kind of kids that I've tried to raise. See, Shirley and I, our goal was, we got to figure out how to raise our kids so that they will pick really nice nursing homes for us someday. That's the goal. If you can do that, you're okay. So we've watched these people who have been successful, and their approach hasn't changed, as much as the kids seem to be different. Like this era that we're in right now, we've got major problems having to do with cell phones, devices, and what's happening on those when we're not listening and seeing what it's like. And when we can have a kid who's sitting right beside us on a cell phone with psychologists and special programmers who are doing what Sean Parker said, first president of Facebook. And what did he say? He said to his crew, how can we figure out how to consume as much of your time and your energy and your attention as possible? And they figured out how to do that. They thought, we will turn these devices into drug dispensers. Yeah, I should say it a different way. Chemical dispensers. We'll figure out so that every once in a while, just like a slot machine does, gives you a little reward, we're going to figure out how we can get these cell phones and computers to give you a little shot of dopamine every once in a while so that you don't want to put that down any more than you want to stop the slot machine. And now we have kids sitting right beside us who are experiencing that minute after minute after minute. And so just like in all these other eras, when new temptations would come along, there would be experts to say, here's how you deal with those kind of things. Well, it just kept changing and just keeps changing. But each time they would say, learn as much as you possibly can about this particular temptation so that you can handle it. So let's suppose today you became a leading expert on what's actually happening behind the scenes on those cell phones. Would that do any good at all if you couldn't set some limits about the amount of time your kids spend on those? Would it be of any value? See, the ability to set limits is going to be important no matter how the world changes. Tell me, are limits important? Yes or no? You know, the biggest fun I have as a speaker is visiting with you, and that means hearing your responses. And I'm not sure I heard that one. Are limits important? Absolutely. Extremely. And why are they so important? if we get into all the psychology of basic human needs, emotional needs, we find out the very top of the list, physical and emotional security, safety. And what do limits provide for all of us? Safety, yeah, and security. So absolutely. So if we spend a little bit of time talking about limits, would that help today? Okay, now what's easiest? Setting limits or enforcing them? Yeah, so we don't have to spend a lot of time on setting them, except I would say that there are some ways to make it easier. When I talk about myself and what I will allow, I don't get near the fight and the pushback than if I am saying to you, shut up. Because shut up is not a limit, it's a wish on my part. I can't control it. But when I say, I'll be glad to listen when your voice sounds like mine, and I walk away, does the kid have any control over me? No. So limits are all about what I'm doing and what I'm allowing, not what you're supposed to be doing. Is that fair enough? So let's practice or think about a few of them. Would this be a limit? I'm happy to let you use your devices when your chores are done and when your homework is finished. And I don't have to worry about your reaction when I tell you to put it down. I don't have to see any eye rolling. I don't have to see any attitude, you know. So I want you to feel free to use it for this amount of time. And of course, that's going to depend on the kid's age, isn't it? But some kids shouldn't be on them at all. Some might be able to handle as much as 2 hours, and some maybe, depending on their ability, to handle it a lot more than that, but you know your kid and what they're going to need. But is that a limit? Yeah. When I say you're welcome to, because what we've discovered about these people who have been so successful through all the years, they don't run a democracy in their house. They run what you might call a benevolent monarchy. And in a lot of cases, a very, very benevolent dictatorship, where the adults they're the models, right? They're the models. They're the wisest people in the house and should be the ones setting the limits. So more than happy to do the extra things you like me to do when I feel respected. When I feel respected. Now, is that something the kid has to do? No, it's me. I'm more than happy to do these things. I'm the one in the family that has the leverage. I'm the one who can drive them somewhere or provide money or whatever. But when I talk about myself, I've set some limits. What if I say to you, don't drink and drive? Is that a limit or a wish? I didn't hear that. It's a wish, isn't it? But what if I talk in these terms? More than happy to see you driving the family car when I don't have to worry about alcohol. Is that something I can control? Because when somebody comes into my house and I say, wow, last night when you came home, I smelled alcohol. So I'm worrying about alcohol. So what's your guess about the family car? What's your guess about driving? Yeah, but somebody else. Oh, I didn't say you couldn't drink. I said I didn't want to. I didn't hear it. Worry, yeah. So the more I can talk in terms of what I'm willing to do. Hey, everybody who's got their chores done on Saturday morning is going to go with me to Silly Willie's Fun Palace. Yeah. Hey guys, time to go. How many of you have got your chores done? Oh no. You're not done? not to worry. I've got Mabel. She's parked out on the street in front in her car. She'll watch you while we're off to Silly Willie's Fun Palace. See, one of the things these parents who were so successful at was planning ahead. They never set a limit unless they figured out ahead of time, how am I going to enforce that? Right? They don't wait until it goes south on them and then say, oh my God, what do I do? They say, well, my kid's normal. He might not get his chores done by that time. So what do I do? And these people often said, I have no idea. I guess I'll call up my friends and see if they've got any ideas. And somebody said to them, well, I think you could have a babysitter already. And tell me this. If a parent turned their yes into yes and the no into no, and the kid never had to worry which it was, would we have a whole lot fewer problems in the house? Yeah. So are we going to have to hire that babysitter over and over and over and over and over for everything? Or are we going to start to develop a little kid who says, oh, I'm not sure what my parents will do. My mom's crazy. She might just do that. I don't know for sure, but does that change things? It does a lot. So we notice that those parents who were so successful always planned ahead on some things. They didn't have to do it for everything in the world, just enough that the kids were off center, right? It's just like kids argue with us about limits. Well, some of them do. Raise your hand if your kids never try to test your limits. Yeah. And how do they do it? That gets us to the enforcement thing, right? How do we enforce it? What if the kid says, well, that's not fair? And we explain to them why it's not fair. Do they say, oh, that's good information, I never thought about that? Or do they take whatever we say, pick a little piece of it and say, yeah, but, and take us off on another bird walk? So we've tried to explain it's fair, and then they come up with something like, yeah, but you never, yeah. And then you try to explain that. And what do? They pick a little piece out of that, and they say, yeah, but none of my friends after. And so we try to say, but your friends don't live in this house. Yeah, but Dad lets us do it, and now we're off on another bird walk. And then the neighbors who have this special ability to listen into our house hear us say things like, oh, all right. And what comes next? See if you never heard this. But just this once. And now the kids have accomplished something, not on purpose, just because it's human nature. They've accomplished something that makes us a little more timid about trying to set the next limit. And if each limit is instead a true yes or a true no, each limit we say becomes an invitation to negotiations. What do we spend most of our time doing? Like the dog with the tail between the legs, right? We become more and more timid about setting those limits. So, we've experimented over the years. The goal of Love and Logic every year has been, how can we figure out more simple ways for people to be able to handle these kind of situations? And how can we do it so that they have less to remember? Because Love and Logic is a bunch of simple techniques, not simplistic, but simple, rooted in, good, solid psychology and universal truths that have run through families for years. But they're easy to learn. They're really hard to remember. That's the problem. That's why we find ourselves wanting to go back and listening to our audio tapes and want to go back and read our books, because they say, the technique was hard, but right when I got to the point where I was going to use it, I just locked up and I forgot the whole thing, right? That's human nature. So we've tried all kinds of things, but what seems to have worked the best for so many people is that when kids start this arguing, we lock up their brain for a split second with a question. See, the brain somehow is designed in such a way that somebody asks a question, it stops the brain for a second while somebody figures out the answer. That's why salesmen are so powerful with all the questions that they ask you all the time. They don't do that by accident. The more questions they ask, the more power they have, the less you have. Okay? So, and we found that being mean about these things just destroys relationships. So we don't want to be mean. We want to be empathetic. So what seems to work for so many people is, could be, and what did I say? In that tone of voice. But that's not fair. Could be, and what did I say? Yeah, but, they're not going to give up that easy, right? My friends never have to. Could be. And what did I say? And we don't stand there and stare into their eyes. We break eye contact and we walk away. Could be. And what did I say? And then a good kid worth his salt is going to follow us. Yeah, but I'm the only kid in the whole school who has to. Well, what's the answer, everybody? Could be, and what did I say? Well, this is really stupid. Could be, and what did I say? Well, Dad lets us. Well, if you hadn't divorced Dad, he'd be around and he'd let me do it. Could be, and what did I say? No. Actually, it doesn't matter what we say. What matters is we're not responding to the statements they're making. Now, my son, he had a neighbor, and she came over to his house one day, and she had one of my books in her hand, and she said, Dr. Fay, she said, my pa, back on the farm, used to use this stuff before your dad ever writ it down. And he said, oh, tell me about that. She said, oh, he was something awful. We would really try to argue with Pa. Now, she explained what arguing looked like back on the farm in Nebraska all those years ago, and it was pretty horrible. It went kind of like this. Now, Pa... See, that was really bad stuff back in those days. And he said, well, what would he do? She'd say, oh, he was terrible. He'd say, oh, sweet Jane. He says, no time for making kitten breeches. He said, cat pants? He said, yeah, no time for making kitten breeches. That's the only thing he'd say. We just got sick of it. He never said anything any different. No time for making kitten breeches. And she said, and you know what's really bad about that? I grew up and I had kids. And pretty soon they argued with me. And I opened my mouth and that same thing came out. He said, but it really worked. Yeah. So the important thing is, we don't respond. When we're trying to set a limit today, and they want to argue about it today, there's no way they're going to get their way. Now, I don't want to be a dictator. And we found out in our home that it worked pretty well to say to the kids, sometime when they weren't arguing, there's probably some things your parents do around here that really grate on your nerves and irritate you. So Mom and I decided that every Thursday night, as soon as dinner is over, you can sit down with us before we clean up the table, and you can tell us about all the atrocities that go on in this house and how it affects you. Now, we will try to listen. We won't argue with you. We won't defend it. We will just listen the best we can, and we may or may not change what we're doing. But we do think you deserve a chance to tell us how our parenting affects you. So yeah, we've done that all over the world. You can go into Love and Logic classrooms and see signs in there that says, teacher argues at 12:15 and 3:15 daily, your choice. And when the kids start to argue, the teacher doesn't say anything, just points up there. And most say, well, make an appointment. Yeah, but right now I do that. And the answer is, could be, and what did I say? So I've never done this before with an audience, but I dreamed it up the other day. I thought, it might be a spectacularly good idea, or it might just bomb. But how would you like to make a movie right now? You got your cell phones? Get them out. Get them out and go to video. Put them on video. And I'm going to invite you to run a video of me while I'm a little kid arguing with you. Okay? And then each time, I want you to respond the way we did before. So you can take this home and play it for your neighbor and say, here's one of the things we learned over there today. We learned how to put a stop to all this arguing and negotiating that the kids think they ought to be able to do every time we try to set a limit. Okay? So ready? Let's go play. Not fair. And what did I say? There you go. Say it again. Could be. And what did I say? Well, this is really stupid. Could be. And what did I say? Nice voice inflection there, by the way. Well, Dad lets us. Could be. But you don't understand. Could be. And what did I say? None of my friends have to do that. You run this place like a dictatorship. Could be, and what do I say? I hate you. Now, when they say I hate you, does that mean they really hate us, or they hate the fact that we're not letting them get their way? Which is it? Okay, let's do it some more. But why? Oh, that's a possibility, isn't it? But why do you suppose they said why? Still recording? Good. Why do you think they said why? They want you to say something so they can pick something out of there to start another negotiation. There you go. So here's a quick one, and then you can repeat it with me. Well, if you don't figure it out by the time you have kids of your own, come talk to me. Or, if you don't figure it out by Friday, I'd be glad to talk about it. Okay? So here we go. But why? If you... Okay. Now, here's one more that we want to keep on our movie. You don't love me. That's the nuclear attack right there, right? You don't love me. And I don't think I'd say could be. But how about this? What did I say? Would that work? What did I say? Now, we have a friend. Let's keep it up because we're going to practice a way that might even be more simple. It might grate on some of you. It might appeal to other people. And that is to take away all those words except for one. And, with a question mark. Let's try it. It's not fair. And, oh, this is really stupid. And, none of my friends have to. And so I know a lot of people who use that one. In fact, we've taught kids who are being bullied to use that very same thing. Think about how that might, when they're being called all kinds of names and the kid is only going, and, okay, thank you for the movie. Did you have fun doing that? I had fun watching you. I had fun thinking about it. I think I'll use it again. Well, first of all, would you advise me to use it again with audience? Okay, thank you. So let's go back to these people who have been successful all through the years in different eras, with different social climates and so on. The first thing they've said is, I have to find a way to set loving limits. Not like a dictator, but here's how I run my life. Here's what I'm willing to allow, and so on. The second thing that these parents became so good at and so enamored with was the idea that when kids cause a problem or have a problem, that doesn't matter whether they've made the problem or they've caused the problem, they would hand this problem back to the kids. And why did they do that? I think what they discovered over the years, that, we love our kids. We don't have to spend any time talking about how to do that here, do we? But our love for our kids can drive us to protect them way too much. And I'm not talking about protecting them from guns or violence and all that kind of stuff. I'm talking about the kind of things that's going to affect them so much in their life. We, through our love, we want to protect them from being disappointed. Yes or no? We want to protect them from worry. Yes or no? We want to protect them from hurt feelings. We do. Disappointments, all those kind of things. And in the process, so often we steal away from them. If you hear nothing else today, please hear this. We steal away the very experiences that they need to be able to handle life in that road ahead where we don't even know what it's going to look like. If we steal that away from them, they're going to be pretty weak. That's what resiliency is all about. Resiliency is to be able to handle when I'm scared, being able to forge ahead anyway. When I'm disappointed, deal with it and forge ahead. When I'm sad, deal with it and go ahead. Instead of saying, somebody else needs to do something about this. So, the way they did it so successfully is they would hand the problems back in a loving way. Now, that often would mean that if the kid caused a problem, they would have to deal with that. There would have to be some consequence that would help them remember not to do that anymore. That's one possibility there. When we started out, we used to talk about consequences a lot. That when kids misbehave, we hand the problem back. they've got a consequence for it. And what happened is we had a lot of people who said that works like dynamite. And we had just as many people who said, thanks for nothing. Now my relationship with my kid is worse than ever. Now I've got more problems than I had before. And then one day it hit us pretty hard because we had a little family, 2 families up in Evergreen, Colorado, and their girls went down to Denver and did some shoplifting. 2 14-year-old girls. And since the parents knew each other and they'd been to our workshops, they decided there has to be a consequence for that. We talked to the girls later to see how it worked out. And one of the girls said, I hate my parents. I can't wait to get out of this house. My parents are just mean, they're vindictive, and I just hate them, and I can't wait until I'm old enough to get out of this house. And we asked, how did your parents handle the situation? Well, my parents got really mad. They told me it was really stupid. They told me I was never going to do it again. They told me they didn't raise girls who acted like that, and they grounded me for 3 weeks. We talked to the other girl, and she said, no, my parents are just trying to help me learn to make better decisions and not to give in to peer pressure. How did your parents handle that? Well, they gave me 3 weeks. They did same thing, except they said, but what did your parents say to you? They said, well, this is really sad for you. It's really sad. Make a mistake like that, but we can sure understand how in a situation that could happen. And do you think 3 weeks would help you remember, or do you think you need more? But when we analyzed that, we said, wait a minute. They did something very special. Well, first of all, they didn't get angry. And by the way, it's perfectly okay to get angry with your kids. I'll show you how to do it. That really makes me mad. I spend a lot of time and worry about that whole thing. I'm going to have to do something about that. But not right now. I make better decisions after I've thought things over. I'll get back to you. Try not to worry about it, okay? I didn't say anything about her being stupid. I didn't say anything about her. I only talked about my anger and my emotion, which is normal. But I didn't deal with the situation while I was still angry. And we figured out she's talking about empathy. Empathy comes first. And once we've locked in the empathy, then and only then is that other person able to think. What happened in that first situation? The only thing that girl could remember in that first situation was how angry they were and what jerks her parents were, and she didn't give one thought to what she had done, right? Because she was still in brainstem operation. The anger puts people into defensive mode. It's just like if right now I were to say to you, hey! What happened? You locked up, didn't you? But what happens if I say, oh, a different part of your brain is now operational, right? Under which of those conditions are you going to think the best? So with that, this young girl was teaching us something very important, and that was empathy comes first. Now, empathy alone will cripple a child, but empathy followed the consequence will get them to thinking. Give you an example. What in the world were you thinking? How many I told you you're not going to drive that car and drink at the same time? Well, I tell you, you've wrecked the family car. Now we all suffer from that. And by golly, you're not driving that car again until you get it paid for. That's one way. Oh, wreck the family car. I bet you feel awful. Wow. It's got to be hard. But don't worry. You'll be driving again just as soon as you get that paid for. Which one of those kids is going to do the most thinking? And that's what, going back to these parents who were successful all through these years, discovered that if they can either lead with empathy and the consequence next, or if they could just handle it like a business deal. It's possible some people couldn't be that empathetic. They might be the kind of person who says, now I'm so mad I can't think. So as soon as I get calmed down, we'll talk about this. And then they handle it like a business deal. Well, son, you wrecked the family car. I didn't. So you'll be driving again as soon as you get it paid for. Not a lot of empathy, but a business transaction, right? If they found that they maintain relationships and they actually handed the problem back. There are a lot of ways to hand a problem back. But the important thing is that when kids cause problems, they do not have parents who say, now look what I have to do. Look what you did. Look how that affects me. Wow. What do you think you're going to do now? Huh? Well, here's a technique you can put in your back pocket, because how many of you in a situation like this find it's rather difficult to come up with a consequence that seems to make sense, that ties the situation into what's going on? Yeah. So the infraction with what's going on. We discovered this from a little kid up in Evergreen. He was a little kid with some major psychological issues. Been in 5 different foster homes. Not successful in any of them. And now ended up in Margaret's house. And she handled things a little different. And the way he got himself out of all 5 of those kids was he would fight with the other kids. So he was in with Dr. Klein having a session, and Dr. Klein was saying, well, Dennis, how's the fighting going? I don't do that anymore. Wait a minute. That was your real strength in life. You're not doing it? No. He said, you don't fight in this house. He said, well, why not? He said, well, my mother, and he looked up at her with all the love in the world. My mother says, fighting drains energy from the house. And when you drain energy from your parents, you have to restore that energy. But she only knows a few ways to do it, like scrubbing the toilets and all that kind of stuff. And so when he would start to get his temper up, she would go, oh, Dennis, I think I feel a drain coming on. The technique is called energy drain. We can make it apply to anything. If your kids lied to you, could that drain your energy, yes or no? Didn't hear you. Yeah, okay. So if they come home late, could that drain your energy? Okay. If they refuse to do their homework, could that drain your energy? Yeah. Okay. If they fight, could that drain your energy? Yeah. Who gets to decide whether or not my energy is drained? I do, right? That's the beauty of that. We can do it at all ages. I remember two kids who were fighting in the back seat of the car, and Dad said, settle down, and they didn't. And he said, guys, I think that's just going to be a major energy drain for me, worrying about this. So if you have to worry, could that drain your energy? Yeah. And I can worry about a lot of things when I have kids. Yeah, okay. And they didn't settle down. But he remembered what these parents have been so successful with over the years, and that is when things go wrong, hand the problem back, but before you do, hoping this will stick with you forever, this terminology, buy time. Buy enough time to be in thinking mode when you do it. Buy enough time to call your neighbors or your counselor or your favorite teacher or somebody at the church or wherever, and put your heads together and figure out something that makes sense. And then deliver it either empathy first or in a business-like manner, okay? So Dad said nothing. And after dinner, he said, guys, that fighting in the car today, I want you to know that kind of stuff really drains my energy. And I'm thinking that you ought to figure out some way to put that energy back for me. Well, we don't know. We won't do it again. Yeah, but the energy is already drained. So how do you want to do it? And if you can't think of some ways, I think I can think of some ways. And one of them said, well, if we rake the lawn, would that put energy back? Said, and well, what if we pulled some weeds too? I think that might do good. Now, do you guys think you can both do it at the same time without fighting, or do you think you want to drain my energy some more? Could we do it with a 3-year-old? 3-year-old has just thrown a major fit. What do you say to a kid who's thrown a fit? Same thing you say to a drunk. Nothing. Nothing. It doesn't work. They're in brainstem. They're not going to hear it. So she just watched it. And later on, when it was over, that's the nice thing about those little temper tantrums. They're over, aren't they? She said, boy, that drained my energy. And that's all she said. And about 20 minutes later, he said, can we go over to the park and swing? Please? And she said, oh, I'd love so. That would be wonderful. But right now, I think I used up all that energy watching that fit. Why don't we just sit on the couch and we'll just sit close together, and I'll close my eyes and I'll pretend that you're over at the park swinging, and I'll get my energy back. You think she's ready now for the next thing that might go wrong? Ooh, that might cause an energy. Could we do it with a 16-year-old? Could we have an energy drain with a 16-year-old? 3-year-old, a 7-year-old? And can we give ourselves enough time to figure out what we're going to do? What might put our energy back? A lot of different ways to do it, aren't there? Okay. So we've talked about two things. And I spent a lot of time on setting limits, didn't I? Why do you suppose? I mean, as the introductions went on, I kept thinking, I planned for X number of things to do, and now I need to revise this a little bit. And I did. I spent a lot of time on limits. Because, we've discovered something over the years, worked with a lot of families where there was chaos in those families. And we had no idea what to do to bring this back around. And we'd say, this could make some therapist rich, you know, but we want to do something. And so we started saying to people, the only thing I want you to learn is how to go brain dead when your kid starts to argue and say nothing but could be and what did I say. And if that takes you 6 months to make that a habit so that your yes turns into yes and your no turns into no, then we want you to come back and talk to us again. You see, we don't do regular therapy at the Institute there. And we've started to see some rather miraculous things happen. People come back and say, things have changed in our house. And the only thing we learned how to do was how to set limit or put a stop to the arguing, right? We also spent our time with how can you hand the problem back when the kid has a problem? Our time is getting away in a hurry. I want to read something to you. I'm going to read it because it's a quote, and it's somebody else's quote. It's a quote from a very wise person. And while I'm getting ready for that, are we living in an era where people are pretty selective about who they want to believe about anything? Are we living in an era where some people can't think somebody has something valid to say unless they first of all know which political persuasion they're in? Yeah. So I'm not going to tell you right off who said this. You're going to hear some things that make you cringe. Some of you will cringe, others will rejoice. Okay? And when it's all over, I wanted to give you a technique to take home to turn each and every one of these situations into a valuable brainwashing activity, actually brainwashing. That might brainwash your kid to believe that he's capable of solving problems and handling things on his own or getting the right kind of help when he needs it. Would that be worthwhile? Okay, here's the quote. From time to time in years to come, now this person is addressing a huge audience. From time to time in years to come, I hope you will be treated unfairly so that you will come to know the value of justice. And I hope that you will suffer betrayal because that will teach you the importance of loyalty. And sorry to say, but I hope you will be lonely from time to time so that you don't take friends for granted. And that you experience disappointment so that you can learn that you can handle it and move on. And I wish you bad luck again from time to time. So you will be conscious of the role that luck the role of luck in life. And you'll understand that your success is not completely deserved, and the failure of others is not completely deserved by them either. And when you lose, as you will from time to time, I hope that every now and then your opponent will gloat over that and gloat over your failure. And as painful as it is, it's a way for you to understand the importance of sportsmanship. And I hope that you will be ignored from time to time, so you will know the importance of listening to other people. And I hope that you will have just enough pain in your life to develop compassion. Now, whether I wish these things for you or not, they're going to happen. You can't do anything about it. And whether you benefit from them or not will depend on your ability to see the message in your misfortunes. Is that all true? And aren't these the very things that we try to protect our kids from? We try to make sure that they have that smooth road down the path of life, or that road of life. And our love for them will tempt us to jump in and try to make all these things right for them instead of allowing them to work their way through these problems. See, that's the trouble with love for our kids, isn't it? We all learned. We learned these things. And how did we learn them? How did we learn to handle all these things? Was it because we read a book? Or somebody else told us something? And did we learn most of the things in our life because our parents warned us if we didn't do this, did we listen to that really well? How about lectures? How about reminders? Yeah. How did we learn to handle all these things? We learned by dealing with them, didn't we? Yeah. Some situations along the way caused us to have to deal with each and every one of these things. Somebody didn't solve it for us. So, that's been my passion since we started Love and Logic in 1977, all these years ago, was how can we work with kids in such a way that they have enough on-the-job training dealing with these issues rather than us jumping in and solving them for them. I can't tell you how to have enough nerve to do it, because sometimes I don't have enough nerve to hand the problem back because I hurt too much for my kid. And my needs to feel okay is far more important at that moment than not robbing from my kid this wonderful experience. So would it help hearing that if I gave you a technique that you could use each and every time your kid runs into a situation like this and you're tempted, but you somehow are able to say, this could be one of those wonderful learning opportunities? Okay. Not an easy thing to do. By the way, who said all this stuff? Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, John Roberts. That was his quotation right there. So we talked about several ways to hand things back. Do you have enough time for me to give you that technique and also give you one more story about handing problems back to kids? You have time for that? Okay. Have plenty of time? Oh, I was worried about that. Okay, I thought I had to be stopped at a certain time. Okay, good. Well, one thing I learned about kids, it was a lot harder raising kids after they left the house. And I raised some responsible kids. Kids who don't call home just when they need money. But I also found out that when my kids were out there in life and everything was going great, they didn't remember me. They remembered me when things went bad. That's when the phone calls came. When they ran out of money, when their friends had betrayed them, when they were disappointed, when they lost a job, all those kind of things. That's when we get those calls. And the first response always is, step one, empathy. Now, I said we're always trying to simplify the use of these. We started out teaching people how to use empathy. We taught them a whole lot of empathetic statements, legitimate empathetic statements. And do you know what the people told us? When I'm hurting over my kid, I can't think of the words. And so all of our good intentions were going astray. I met a woman in West Virginia. I happened to spend some time in the family. I happened to be there just at a time when the kids got off the bus and came in, and they were all upset. Well, bus driver gave us assigned seats, and now we can't visit with our friends, and it's not fair. And her response was, oh. Yeah, and we didn't get to go out to recess today because we didn't have our homework. And she said, oh. And I talked to her later. I said, you didn't give the kids any advice. You just went, oh. Do you do that all the time? And she said, oh, damn straight. That's all she said, damn straight. I do it every time. I said, well, doesn't that get redundant? She said, I don't think so. I said, well, where do you get that? And she said, well, and you tell me if this is true or not. All human beings are starved for empathy. Yeah. And when it happens, they don't even hear the words. They only get the sound. It's just like when I said to you, oh, what happens? Brain chemistry changes. We go from brainstem into frontal cortex, into thinking mode. I said, but you do it every time. Why? She said, if I had to think long enough to come up with some words, I wouldn't be able to do it. She said, so you do it every time the same way? And she said, yes, every time. So we got to checking people out. Do a little informal research, because we're always going to different states and different places, and we'd listen to how people did empathy, and I found out it's kind of localized. If you were in Oklahoma, what would you hear? Dang. And if you were down south, you'd hear, bless your heart. And if you were out in California, you'd probably hear, dude. And if you were in Bemidji, Minnesota, you'd probably hear, yachis, you know? And so what we finally discovered was empathy isn't about words anyway. It's about body language. It's about tone of voice. And so what we started saying is, if you want to be really good at empathy, forget the words. And just come up with one empathetic sound that feels comfortable to you. And put it on the tip of your tongue and leave it there from now to the end of your life. Yeah. Because your kids and your friends will not hear the words anyway. They will hear what's all behind that and what's in your heart. And what's in your heart is trying to understand their feelings, not being an expert on what they are, but just understanding those feelings. Okay? So now your kid has got a problem. He's been mistreated. My teacher's mean. She hates me. And what is the response? Oh. And we leave some time. Step 2 is a question. And this may be the most important question you ever ask your kid. And I hope it becomes a mantra. It's like all of us in this room know the mantras that our parents used. And they're stuck in our heads, aren't they? And this mantra is, what do you think you're going to do? What do you think you're going to do? And if you write that down, underline the word think. Not what are you going to do, but what do you think you're going to do? And anybody worth their salt will come back with, I don't know. Well, that's right. They don't. And here comes the next question. Would you like to hear what other kids have tried? Underline the word tried. Would you like to hear what other kids have tried? Now, if you're like me, and I've worked with thousands of kids and done between 2,000 and 3,000 presentations and talked about all this, if you're like me, you probably can't think of any. Yeah, and that's okay. That's when you say, well, give me a day or two, or give me some time, and I'll see what I can figure out about what other people have tried. Now, is this whole process pretty dignified? Does it basically say, I have great confidence in you? Because, see, I don't become what you think I can, and I don't become what I think I can. I become what I think you think I can. We don't become what our parents think we can. We become what we think they think we can. If they think that we're incapable, and they jump in right away to solve a problem, what is the thinking behind that? You don't measure up. You need me. You can't do this on your own. And then they wonder their kids go off to college and they encounter something they don't like and they have no idea how to handle it. Why? Because their parents have drummed that into them for years. You can't figure these things out. You need somebody else to run interference for you. So, would you like to hear what some other people have tried? Really says a lot about what you think of them. Now, when it comes time to come up with some answers, this kid has said, my teacher hates me. You know, she picks on me all the time. You know, it's not fair. Let's hear it. What's the first thing, everybody? Oh, let's hear it. What do you think you're going to do? Let's hear it. What do you think you're going to do? He says, I don't know. Would you like to hear what some other kids have tried? Now, if I know kids, they're probably going to reject the first thing you come up with. Because if they say that won't work, then they feel more capable, right? So I want to come up with the worst possible one. I might say, well, I've known some kids just get even with the teacher by not doing any work. How do you think that would work? Well, that's stupid. That wouldn't. Yeah, I figured. Well, some kids, they watch the other kids that the teacher likes, and they watch them real close to see what kind of things they do, and they copy them. How do you think that would work? You don't even have to do that, but it's kind of fun to say, how do you think that would work? Okay. Well, I don't know if I want to do that. Well, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just telling you what other kids have tried. Okay. Some kids, they come in the morning and they smile at the teacher. And when the teacher talks, they look at them real intensely, and every once in a while they shake their heads and they answer questions. Some kids try that. But you know, sweetie, I've run out of ideas. Maybe other people have some ideas too. But what have we said here? Who's going to be the ultimate person in control of your life to solve these kind of problems? You are. Okay. So I'm hoping that you'll find some value in that. I'm hoping that now, just out of curiosity, let's suppose you got really good at that. We've talked about 3 simple techniques here. What if you got good at that? Are all of these relationship builders? How do you like being around other people who say, you know what you ought to do? You ought to go do this. How many like hanging out with people like that? How about people who say, wow, oh, that's rough. What do you think you're going to do? Even if they have no idea, they have no ideas for you, still, which one of those people would you rather hang out with? Okay. Well, I'm going to end with another story. I don't think I've ever told this one, so it might be fun. This is about Jason. And Jason was having a pretty bad day. See, Jason had really gotten into soccer. He was 9 years old, and it's all he could think about. It's all he wanted to watch on TV. Starting to fancy himself a really good soccer player. But today was a bad day because he was getting too big for his britches. And he was acting up pretty bad. And he was hogging the ball, and he was yelling instructions to his friends on the team, and just all around bad sportsmanship, to the point to where the coach came and told him, come on, it's not all about you. If you can't settle down, I'm going to have to pull you out of the game. And it made him so mad, he ran and pushed one of the other kids down and kicked the soccer ball over the fence and stormed off. His mother is watching this. She's dismayed. She'd like to run out on the field and jerk him by the arm off the field and so on, and she just gritted her teeth because she remembered a couple of things. I got to hand the problem back, and before I do, I got to buy some time. So the only thing she said on this ride home, which was not very pleasant, was, I was really embarrassed. I'm going to have to do something about that. But right now I'm too angry to deal with it. So then she decided she didn't know what to do. So she talked to several people and finally made a decision. And she called up the coach. And she said, it's a lot more important to me that my son becomes a good person than a good soccer player. And I've talked to him about sportsmanship, and it doesn't seem to work. But I remember that I didn't learn much from my parents giving me lectures. It was when they actually did something, so I want to do something about it. Can you help me out? Could you do such and such? He said, yeah, I think I could. And then she called several other mothers. And she said, I'm embarrassed about what happened with Jason. And I'm wondering if you could help me out. Well, people say, yeah, but how? Well, would you be willing to? And they said, yeah, we can help you out. So she went to Jason and said, we've talked about sportsmanship. It doesn't seem like it's soaked in. But Jason, I want you to know something. I take you to those games because I like riding with you and I like watching you play. And that last game was not fun. So I'll be driving you to your soccer games again someday, when I know it can be fun, and when your coach gives me a call and tells me that you're now being a good sport. Well, that's not fair. How am I supposed to get there? She said, I don't know. I was going to ask you the same thing. So she had practiced all of this so that she could say it in a calm way. Took enough time to do that. Well, you're supposed to drive me. I know. And what did I say? Well, how am I supposed to get there? I can't get there on my own. Well, Would you like to hear what some other kids have tried? See, Love and Logic parents don't have this multitude of techniques. They just have a limited number of ones. They keep falling back on those all the time. Try to remember too much, we can't remember any of it, right? Okay. She said some kids call up your friends' mothers and see if they'll let her. Oh, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to call him. And he called up one mother. And he turned around and he was spitting angry. He was ready to spit. He said, she wouldn't even let me in the car. She said the way I acted out there, she wouldn't even have me in the car with her kids. She said, wow, what do you think you're going to do? I don't know. Well, some kids don't give up that easy. They call some others. He called another, and they called another, and he called another. Now he's really mad. They said I can ride with them, but they're going to charge me. How am I supposed to do that? And she said, I don't know. See, the more you can say, I don't know, the more powerful you become. Right? I don't know. Well, some weeks went by, and most of his allowance money went to go to soccer because it was a big deal for him. And then she got the call from the coach. Says, he's doing a great job out there. And so she went and gave him a hug, and she said, oh, I got such good news from the coach. He said that I can start driving you to the game again. What's your guess? Has she made a major step toward turning her yes into yes and her no into no? Yeah. And might that be some of the most important thing that we've talked about today? Is turn my yes into yes and my no into no. So I hope you find some value in that, and you can probably tell I had more fun than you did. It was a delight being with you. Thank you very much. Stick around and ask the questions. Thank you. I tell you how I like to handle questions. I like for people to raise your hands, and I'll give you a number, and then we'll call out the numbers. And if your question is one that's going to be good for the whole audience, then I'll try to answer it. If not, you can take my phone number and give me a call. So let's write that phone number down first. 303-883-3541. If I don't answer, I will call you back, okay? So you're number one. Who's number two? You're number two. You're number three. Others? Four. If that triggers some other questions, number four.
Five.
Number five, okay. So number one. Okay, we'll get your number six.
Oh.
You don't have to use
I don't think I need it. Test.
Yeah.
Hey, so surrounding healthy food, 7 and 10-year-olds.
Well, it's interesting. Kids are more inclined to eat the kind of food that's in the house because we can't control what happens when they're outside the house. We make ourselves look pretty bad when we try to control something we can't control. I know, here's what a couple people have tried. Okay, one, I know, what?
So bad.
I know, and you don't have to eat it. See, the nice thing is, this is what I'm serving. See, we don't run a cafeteria, and the kids don't decide what we cook and what we serve. But they're always you're free to have the stuff that we serve. And by the way, we serve for 20 minutes. Okay. But if you'll notice on the bottom shelf of the refrigerator, there's an assortment of foods that you can eat if you don't like what's here. And on that is an assortment of healthy stuff. But that's what's available. So you can always have this, but if it tastes bad, and with a lot of kids, their palates are different than ours. It really, truly is. They can always get that stuff that's on that shelf. Have at it. You can decide for yourself. But we've also discovered, I talked to some pediatricians, and they said there's not one case history in the state of Colorado ever of a kid dying because he missed a meal because he didn't like what was being served at that meal. Now, there are kids who die from starvation, but it's not in most of these homes around here, right? So that's one option. It's there, it's available. The one lady that impressed me so much was, she said, I can get my kids to eat anything that I serve, no matter how new it is. And she said the way we did it is, anytime I would introduce a new food to the table, we would only cook a limited amount of it, just enough for my wife and I. And the kids would say, well, where's ours? And they said, it's adult food. It's not for kids. And they would lap it up and talk about how great it was. And then the next day they would cook it again. They'd cook it again. And the kids would say, where's ours? We told you it's adult food. It's not for kids. It's just for adults. Adults like this kind of stuff. See, in a kid's mind, the only thing they can really think about is how to be big, how to do things that big people do, okay? And eventually, after a few days, the kids would, well, it's not fair. You guys get that stuff and we don't. Oh, all right. You can have a little bit. Don't eat too much because we like it. Just some thoughts, okay. Number 2? Yes.
Wait, here you go.
Practicing pianos.
Practicing pianos.
Okay,
with
now
my
you're
children.
talking to an ex-professional musician whose mother made him practice an hour a day. And I am so thankful for it. But there aren't very many people who are thankful for that. Because practicing and playing the piano is something that the adult loves and knows that the kid might love someday. So there's some things that kind of raise the odds. That's the best I can do, is to raise the odds. First of all, let me pick on you for a second. Do you know music already? Oh, that you're better off than the people who do. Okay. Because for people who already know music, they're very inclined to be listening for what's wrong and say, stop, that's a half note, not a whole note. Okay. Stop, So, and that's a real quick way to make sure the kids never enjoy their. Okay. Now, kids imagine playing a piano or being in a band, and they imagine doing it for other people. See, I'm still like that. At 90 years old, I still play my trombone, my euphonium, and I make recordings and I send them off to my friends because the big thing in my life was other people listening to me play my music. Okay? So make sure the kids practice when you're cooking dinner, where you can't be right there, where you can stop them often and yell into them, stop, stop, play that again, that was great, I loved it, I got to hear that again, play that again, okay. And so this is especially hard for people who already know music because they want to listen for what's wrong and correct it. That's the job of the teacher. The job of the parent is to go, ooh and ah, and I love that, and play that again, and I want to hear that. Oh, see? So those kind of things will raise the odds. But a lot of times, that may not be the great talent that the kid has. So I'm not big on buying expensive instruments. I'm big on renting one and trying it out. I'm thinking of this great movie producer whose Jewish mother, oh, now I've met her. I can't even say her name right now. But her thing was, kids need to start and stop as many different activities as possible in their young life so that they can figure out where their true talent lies. And if we insist that if we get them started on something and you're going to stick with that forever, first of all, they're going to hate that. And second is, they may never have had that experience some other things along the way that would say, oh, here's where my passion is. So that's just some random thoughts on it, which is the best I can do for you right now. Okay, good. 3?
My name is Susan. Thank you so much for your presentation.
You're welcome.
Really enjoyed it today. My question about the presentation today is, if you have a house right now with 3 children, kindergarten, 2nd grade, and 6th grade, that's in utter chaos because they're turning on each other. That's what I was going to say. They're fighting. To implement this, what could be the starting point? Do I have a team meeting and say, okay, this is how we're going to go forward? Do I forget about the 6th grader because he's already developed?
No.
Do I?
Okay, the answer to all of those is no. Okay, if that helps us get a start on that, right? And she described it. It's utter chaos, isn't it? Well, what if we just picked out one thing that would make a big difference and only went after that? And don't tell the kids what we're going to be doing. We just spring it on them. And they're smart enough to figure it out, okay? So if we could handle the fighting, would that make a big difference? Okay, they're turning on each other. Okay. So with the fighting, it's is one of them so powerful that the other one is going to get hurt badly? Okay, that could change my answer, but oh, good. Okay, guys. So did I give you one technique that might help? Guys, that fighting is draining my energy. I love that. Yeah, okay. And so before I might do that, I might say, guys, this is really sad. Take it somewhere else. Where? Anywhere where I'm not. That kind of stuff turns my bile black. Yeah. So try not to hurt each other, but take it somewhere else and get it worked out. Now, if they do that, that's fine. If they don't, then we may have to have a training session, right? Like the lady that did with the sportsman, right? We might have to sit down and talk to our friends and figure out what could I do if he's refused. But a refusal is a major energy drain. And that's when a kid says, we're not taking it somewhere else. Are you sure that's wise? Are you thinking that you want to gamble with that, guys? Something you want to take it to the bank? Okay. Yeah. So, first of all, I would not advise saying no to your mom. That could be such a major energy drain. Okay. Yeah. And let's suppose they go ahead and fight. Then we're going to deal with it at another time. Okay. And it might just be that I need to get my energy back by going shopping on Saturday instead of us all going to do what we were going to do. And Mabel, the babysitter from hell, we don't call her that, but we know we don't hire the sweetest lady in the world. We hire somebody who can come in and says, my God, kid, I don't like kids in the first place. Go to your room. You can come out when your mother comes home. You know, That's the kind of person, and they pay for that babysitter. How many times will they need to pay for a babysitter while you take good care of yourself and get your energy back before they start to figure out maybe your word is yes when it's yes and no when it's no? But take it, guys, take it somewhere else. That would be my first thing that I would work on. And if I got that under control, and especially if you were lucky enough that they were refused and you got to follow through, I think there'd be some changes there. But I'd start there. Is that fair enough? Okay, number 4.
So my 80-year-old couple of times asked if I can go play date or TV. I say, if you finish this work, as soon as you finish, we can do that. But after 2 hours, after doing one question, it's so tough. I'm already working from last 2 hours, and he just did one question. So, I mean, how that, like, focus and finishing the things, because I know he can do it, but he just try to say it's so tough, and then I'm mean because I'm not letting him go. So how to bring that focus and attention?
So how are you feeling about being a broken record with could be and what did I say? You feel like you can do that?
Yeah, but after 2 hours, he still say it's tough.
So let's look at 2 different scenarios. Let's look at the scenario before you came here. Okay. And it would be 2 hours of him just complaining and complaining. Okay. See, one thing I've discovered along the way, it's basic human nature that when we see a new technique and then we associate it with the old technique that took up 2 hours, we think the new technique is going to take 2 hours. Now, kids are pragmatists. Pragmatists will not waste their time doing something that does not work. So if the only thing he's going to hear could be, and what did I say, and then you walk away. Yeah, it's not going to take 2 hours. He's going to, unless he's the stupidest kid in the world, he's going to figure out, this is not working. I've got to try something else, and then he will try something else. But you're still going to go back to that same thing, and what did I say, and you walk away. Now, worst case scenario, I knew a woman who started doing that, and the kids kept wanting to follow her. Now, if they follow her and keep it up, that's an energy drain, right? I'm going to do something about that. Right now, I'm guessing is that you haven't really done anything about his behavior other than complain about it, which is normal, right? Yeah, that's what most people do. So don't beat yourself up. But no, he's got to see you doing something about it, which is you're not responding. And this lady said, these kids would just follow me around. And she said, I made the mistake of staying in there and saying, what did I say, instead of saying that and then walking away. Okay. She decided to do something about it. She had a little training session. And so she just went into the bathroom and shut the door. Well, these are obnoxious kids, so they're banging on her. Open the door. Our therapist says we're supposed to talk about our issues. It's hell on wheels, right? So she said, well, I can't do anything about it right now, but after dinner on Friday night, she said to the guys, guys, I don't like to argue with you. And there's been a lot of arguing. So I just hate that. But I've got a friend by the name of Mary, and she likes to argue. And she'll be knocking on the door in just a minute, and she's going to come in and argue with you guys. And I'm going to go shopping. Okay. Well, they're in there, And they were saying to Mary, "You're crazy. We're not arguing with her." And she said, "Hey, have it your way. I'm just here to be in the house for a couple, 3 hours. And I'm not here to take care of you guys. I'm just here to guard the house from anybody coming in and wanting to have parties with you." "We ain't paying you." She said, "By the way, I charge $15 an hour if everything is calm and all you want to do is argue." "Well, we're just leaving." She said, "That's fine. I charge $20 an hour to guard the house while you're gone, and you're not here helping me." "We ain't paying you." She said, "That's okay. I talked to your mom, and she said that I can come in anytime I want to. She gave me the key, and she said I can come anytime I want to and go to your room and find anything that I can take down to the pawn shop to make the difference." And they watched her like a hawk. And when Mom came home, they gave her a great compliment. "Mom, you're crazy." Yeah. So it might be we have to follow up. But I'm going to invite you to just keep my phone number and use that technique just the way I told you. What did I say? And walk away. And if you find that does not make a difference, you and I are going to visit on the phone, and we're going to come up with some really good training sessions.
Sounds good.
Sound good? Okay.
Thank you.
Number 5. Number 5? Yes. I can hear you.
Like, her 2 best friends, only 2 friends, don't talk to her, and she's very sensitive. So, how to talk to her, and I don't know.
Well, I'm going to direct you back to empathy. What do you think you're going to do? How you're going to deal with this, sweetie? And say, it's got to be so hard. Yeah. Talking with kids ahead of time before they're being bullied, and that's the kind of bullying that's going on social media and that kind of stuff. Talking ahead of time to them about why people do that kind of stuff, and how it meets their needs, and whether or not it's about them. So, and saying, at any time you may find this kind of thing coming up. It really helps if you've had that conversation ahead of time. But nobody's been around to talk about it ahead of time. But number 1, don't try to fix it. Number 2, don't try to make her feel better. Because the more you do, the more you're going to send a subconscious message that says, you can't handle this and you need me to do this. I would use referential speaking. This is a powerful, powerful technique. And I haven't offered it, but I bet a lot of you might enjoy this. If you want a kid to value honesty, don't tell him to be honest. If you want him to be industrious, don't tell him to be industrious. Tell a friend about how it affects you where they can overhear it, but think that they're not supposed to. Have you ever noticed that if a kid hears something you hope that they would not hear? How long do they remember that? Forever, right? But if you say, now listen up and pay attention and I'm going to tell you this, how long do they remember that? So if I want a kid to value honesty, I don't tell him to be honest. I watch for a chance when I can talk to another friend, and if I don't have one, I talk to an imaginary friend on my phone. And I say, Janice, today I made a horrible mistake at work. And then you kind of talk a little softer, so they kind of, yeah, you know what I did. and I wanted to lie about it. And I finally got up all my nerve to tell the truth, and I feel so much better. And they hear that. You're not telling them to be honest, but you're letting them know how much that affects you. That can make a big, big difference. So I might think, what's her name? But is it okay to tell her name? Angela. Okay. So I'm talking to this friend on the phone. You know, Angela is getting picked on by some of her kids. And I'm so thankful to know that she's the kind of person who can handle that and know that it's not about her. See, I'm not telling her. You know, I think you only have to say that once before that's imprinted. I only heard my mother one time say, because see, I failed kindergarten, I failed first grade, I didn't repeat first grade, I failed second grade, and I repeated second grade. And I didn't do much better for a long, long time. And I only heard her one time say to her friend, Jim has a hard time in school. Jimmy has a hard time in school. But one thing about him is he's bright, and when he gets it together, he's going to be dynamite. I only heard that once. Did that happen? Yeah. That was just stayed with me. And those books back there now are in 14 different languages all over the world. I'm still amazed that people will listen to me. But, you know, she was right. Back in my mind, I knew I was going to get it together. So that would be one thing. And other than that, I wouldn't send her to a therapist so much to have the therapist talk with her about it, but I would go to a therapist and get some ideas about how you can do some similar things. That's where I'd start. Yeah. Okay. Number 6? Yes. See, the fun thing for me is I forget about all these techniques until somebody asks me a question, and then they kind of come up. Yeah. I can hear you.
So you talk a lot about setting limits for electronic devices, and I think as parents we should model those limits. My husband works a lot on his phone, so I think sometimes he feels like those limits don't necessarily apply to him.
Are you all hearing this okay? Yeah. Okay.
So my question is, do you have any advice on approaching your spouse without making them feel defensive and shedding light on their phone usage and how it's impacting the family?
Is your husband a good man? You want to keep him? Don't deal with it with him. Don't deal with him on this issue. No. See, the toughest thing about these phones and all that, I said they're actually a drug dispenser, aren't they? But also they're so valuable for everything else. It's like we just can't quit it. It's like you can't just quit eating when you got an eating disorder. And you can't just, he can't do that. I mean, you might one times, I don't know. I just don't know a good way to approach it with him. As long as if you value your marriage, you know. Okay. But so I would probably deal with the kids. Yeah. And say, yeah, you know, when you get to be Dad's age, Dad has to decide for himself. And you're going to get to decide for yourself. And when you leave the house, you can decide for yourself. And while you're here. You know, we're not going to say, as long as you live in this house. No. You know, as long, while you're still in training to be an adult. I like to say, these are not young adults. They're in training to be adults. Yeah. As long as you're still in training to become an adult, I'm going to set the limits on that. Okay? And you're welcome to use them for this amount of time, provided I don't get any attitude when I ask you to put them down. And see, the reason I bring this up about attitude, and I'm talking to this kid right now, when I see attitude, that tells us that there's an addiction that's happening. And when I don't see attitude, I know that you're still handling it okay. So I might have that discussion. And when do you have those kind of discussions? When you're driving the car and you don't have to look at them and you don't have to see their rolling eyeballs, because her eyes are going to roll when you do that. And by the way, would you like a technique for eye rolling? Yeah. So when she rolls her eyeballs, you look amazed. Pause. Can you see your brains when you do that? And then every time they roll their eyeballs after that, see, they're trying to make you mad. They're trying to show you they got attitude, and you misunderstand it totally. And you say, can you see your brains when you do that? And then every time they roll their eyeballs after that, you say, still looking for your brains? I know they're there. You're going to find them. Keep it up. Keep looking for your brains. Yeah. But so I would have that discussion. And so what are the choices? You know, I said these homes run like a benevolent monarchy. The phones are the property of the library of mother and father, or mother, or whoever lives in the house. They're on loan. Yeah, they're not the kid's property. So I may have to put it somewhere else. And if I'm worried about putting it somewhere else and the kid is the kind who's going to be sneaky about it, the other thing is, you're welcome to use it as long as I don't see attitude and I don't see any sneakiness. So if I see sneakiness, I know that there's an addiction building here. So I may probably put it in somebody else's house. And it'll be there until I don't have to worry about it. When am I going to get it? When I don't have to worry about it. No, don't give them a specific amount of time. Well, how do you know that? I don't know when I don't have to worry. I guess when I see you doing things around the house without being asked, when I see you doing your chores without attitude, I'll know maybe it's time to give them back. So you figure out a good way to convince me that it's time to get it back. Okay? So they get it back and they can try it again, and it might have to go somewhere else again. But I would not. See, the worst thing that could happen for some people in this room is to go home and say, I learned all this stuff, and this is what we are going to do when I get home. We're both going to do that. No. Say, I learned some new stuff today. You probably wouldn't be interested in it, but I'm probably going to do some things that are different, and let them just kind of copy. Yeah. So that's the best I can do. Way back there.
We have two questions back here. I would like to know, as Jason's mother, the soccer player, apologies. Are apologies important to give to the coach, to his teammates? Is that something that's important?
Apologies are really, really beneficial for the person who really wants to give one and feels better after they do. But we never force kids to do apologies. We might say, I wonder if you might feel better if you apologize. And if I want to instill that, I might talk to a friend, so my kid overhears me saying, oh, I did something wrong, I finally apologized, I feel so much better. Let them copy that. Okay?
And then there's one more question.
Thank you. And anyway, it's great to see you. I have to say, I saw you when my kids were in preschool, and 3 of the 4 boys are now in college. So
good.
I think your words
they
of
lived
wisdom.
Through it.
I lived through it, but I still have a junior in high school.
Yeah.
And so this is a great refresher about limits and how to deal with it, and I will definitely employ a lot of the things you said today. But before the limit has to happen, and they are making these decisions because you want to let them off the leash a little bit, But you know what's going to go on. You know it's going to be bad. They want to go to Red Rocks in the party bus. You know there's going to be drinking and whatever else going on. You want to allow them to make these decisions, but you know, you kind of feel like you're putting them in a bad situation, but then they'll be mad at you if they can't do that. So do you just talk to them and give them, you know, that this could happen, think about this type of, you know, discussion beforehand so that hopefully they can make decisions, or how do I handle this?
Advice is always great, but the way we do it can make a big difference. So one thing that I discovered as a new parent is this never works. Don't do that. Why? If you do that, this is going to happen. No, it won't. Well, what if it doesn't? I look like an idiot telling him it was going to happen, right? And otherwise, I've given him something to reject. He has to go ahead and do it anyway to prove that he can do it. I know a dad who wanted to give his kid advice about wearing the orange jacket when he went hunting. And he said, "You're not going unless you wear it." And the kid said something like, "I can decide that for myself. It's my body." And then he said, "Deal with it, Dad." And now he had something to feel like he was righteously thinking for himself. He actually thought he was thinking for himself when he left it in the truck. And miracle of miracles, he was the kid who was shot that day. Yeah. I don't want to be the person who gives the kid something to fight about. But what seems to work for a lot of people is this one. "Oh, I don't think I'd go out there and do that. If I did that, I would be afraid such and such and such and such would happen." Okay. I want to give you two techniques. This is the first one. So it's always say, here's what I'm afraid would happen to me if I did that. Okay. I don't think I'd go out there and mouth off to those bigger kids out there. Boy, I think if I did that, I might get a bloody nose or a fat lip or have to carry my tooth around in an envelope for a week. Boy, yeah, I don't think I would want to do that. And then we leave it. We don't say it's up to you. We just say, here's what I do. The second thing is, would you like a technique for knowing when your kid is old enough to do anything that they want to do? They always want to do something that's a little bit older than what they're capable of. I didn't hear the answer. Yeah, okay. So this is going to be the last one, okay? So you want to go on the party bus, okay? I'm assuming there's probably going to be drinking and probably be some drugs there, okay? What is your plan for handling that if somebody offers it to you? Now, the kid says, well, you know I don't do that. Is that a plan? No. Well, I just tell them it's stupid. Do you know, raise your hand if you're good at telling your friends that what they do is stupid. I mean, we can't even do that ourselves, and we tell our kids to. Well, so that's not a plan. If they have a specific plan and say, well, when somebody offers me, this is what I do, here's what I say. And it sounds like you've got a plan. I'd say, you know, I don't think I have to worry about you a whole lot. You've got a plan. But if they have no plan, I'd say, well, I'd love to see you go, but I don't think you're ready. Well, I'm ready, yeah, and it might be that you're ready and I'm not ready. See, it's okay to say, I'm not ready. I'm just not ready to worry about stuff like that. Well, that's really stupid. You need to work on it. Yeah, I'll work on it. That's good advice. I'll work on it. But right now, I'm not ready, okay? I know one kid who said, his mother said, well, is there going to be drugs and alcohol? Yeah. What's your plan for handling it? He said, well, here's what I do, Mom. I just tell them, you know, my parents are crazy. They're so paranoid. that if they even knew that I was talking with you about this, they would probably take all of my college money and put me in rehab immediately. I don't dare do it. Is he ready? Don't have to worry about him, right? Okay. So I can tell you got a thought on that. That's it. Okay. Well, thanks everybody. I had a delightful time. I hope you